Hello everyone. So today in this video I am going to take class 9 chapter Force and Laws of Motion. So if you see my channel for the first time, please do subscribe. And if you guys need any online tuitions, video lectures, notes, please do mail to my mail ID given in the description. So let us get into the chapter. So what do you mean by force? Now force is generally, it is an effort. Okay, it is basically an effort that we do in the form of pushing, pulling, etc. It's basically an effort that we use. It can be in the form of pushing, pulling, etc. which can change a body from its state of rest into motion and change a body from motion to rest, or even change the speed of the body, and finally change the size and shape of the body. So this is what you mean by force. It can change a body from rest. If a body is in rest, by the applied force, it can change the body from rest to motion. Same way, if a body is in motion, by the applied force, it can stop. So it will come to rest. Same way, a body traveling in 40 km per hour, by the force applied, even it can be the brakes, it will come into somewhat 20 km per hour. So it can change the speed, and finally the size and shape also can vary. So this is what you mean by force. Now this force, it is of two types. There are two types of forces: balanced and unbalanced forces. Now what do you mean by balanced forces and what do you mean by unbalanced forces? Now balanced forces are those whose net resultant of all forces that are acting on the body is zero. So I'll show you with an example. So consider this to be a plane, and this is a body which is placed on that plane. Now if all the forces that are acting on this body, the net resultant we get is 0. So resultant that we get is 0. There will be no change happening to the body, that it will remain unstill. So what happens? These type of forces are called balanced forces. Now what are unbalanced forces? So the same example we will take. So this is a plane and this is a body. Now this is the force I am applying. So due to this applied force, if the body changes its position from 1 to 2, so consider this body has changed its position from 1 to 2. So what happens? This body from rest, it moves to this point. So what has happened? Due to the applied force, the body has changed its position. So that is what you mean by unbalanced forces. Now in reality, if we check, we always require unbalanced forces, because if we are using a balanced force, there will be no change happening. Even if it's in rest or motion, no change will be happening to the body. But if it's an unbalanced force only, there will be some change happening to the body. So we always require an unbalanced forces. So that's all about force. Now we come to the main part of the chapter, the laws of motion. The laws of motion were given by Sir Isaac Newton and also known as Newton's laws of motion. So we are going to see the first law of motion. So what does the first law state? The first law states that a body continues to be in a state of rest or motion along a straight line unless an external unbalanced force is applied and changes the state of the body. So this is the first law of motion. So what does the first law state? a body always continues to be in a state of rest or in a state of motion. That it will always be in a state, whichever state it is, if it is in rest or motion, unless, this unless is very important, unless an external unbalanced force, so we are using an external unbalanced force, acts on it to change the state of whatever state it is. So it can change the body from a state of rest to motion, and from motion to rest it can change. So this is what do you mean by the first law of motion. Now this first law is also known as the law of inertia. So what do you mean by inertia? This is also called as the law of inertia. So what is inertia? Now you must understand that whenever there is a change of state, that if a body is in rest, if it changes to motion, and if it's coming from motion to rest, there will be a resisting force that no body will be allowing themselves to change their state. If it's in rest, it will not be allowing, or it will be resisting that change of state. So such a change of state, that resisting force, is what you mean by inertia. Okay, so whenever a body is changing its state, even human beings or any other vehicles, everything, there will be inertia happening. So what is this inertia? I will show you with an example. So we will take the inertia of rest and inertia of motion. So we will take the two states and we will explain both of them. So first, inertia of rest. The second, inertia of motion. Both of them I will explain with a small example. So we will take the example that a person is sitting inside a bus. So consider this to be the seat of the bus, and this is the person sitting. So in this example, the bus starts suddenly. We find that the person sitting inside the bus has a tendency to fall backwards. So here, the person sitting inside, when the bus starts suddenly, falls backwards. Okay. Now why does that happen? Okay. Now when the bus starts suddenly, the lower part of the body, it goes into the motion, that the bus starts into motion, and the lower part of the body also becomes into motion. But the upper portion of the body, it continues to be in rest, or it wants to be in rest. Okay, so that's why, since there is a two states happening at the same time, so this upper portion will try to resist that change of state. That resisting force is the inertia of rest happening. That's why a person sitting inside the bus, when the bus starts suddenly, fall backwards. So hope you understood the inertia of rest. Now the next example also, we will take the same example. So this is a seat and this is a person sitting. Now in this, the bus stops suddenly. So the bus stops, the driver applies the brake and the bus stops suddenly. So what happens? A person sitting inside has a tendency to fall forward. So here, the person sitting inside will have a tendency to fall forward. Now why does that happen? So when the bus applies the brake, the driver applies the brake, the bus comes into rest. So same way here, the lower portion of the body also comes into rest with the bus. But the upper portion of the body continues to be in motion. So when this change of state is happening, the upper portion wants to be in motion. So that's why the upper portion exerts an inertia, and that's why a person sitting inside the bus falls forward when the driver applies the brakes of the bus. Okay, hope you all understood inertia of rest and inertia of motion. So this is about the first law of motion. The second law and further we will see in the next video. Thank you.